Historical BAMFs, because your textbook left out the good parts. He was 20 years old when his dad got murdered at what was supposed to be a nice family wedding. By 30, he had carved out one of the biggest empires the ancient world had ever seen, Greece to the edge of India, and never lost a single major battle. Then, at the edge of the unknown world, his own army looked at him and said, "Yeah, we're good. Thanks." This is the story of the guy who ran out of a planet before he ran out of ambition. Meet Alexander III of Macedon. You know him as Alexander the Great, but at 20, nobody was calling him great. They were mostly calling him that kid and wondering how fast they could take his throne. His dad, Philip II, had spent decades turning Macedon from a nothing kingdom into the scariest military machine in Greece. Then, during his own daughter's wedding celebrations, nice timing, Philip got stabbed to death by one of his own bodyguards. You know, a guy whose entire job was the opposite of that. So, Alexander inherits a throne surrounded by rivals who want him dead, nobles who don't respect him, and a Greek world just waiting to see how fast the boy king experiment falls apart. Spoiler, it didn't fall apart. It fell upward violently onto everyone else. Alexander spent year one doing damage control, crushing rivals, locking down the throne, the usual new king paperwork. Then, while he's off campaigning in the Balkans, a rumor starts making the rounds back home. Alexander is dead. The city of Thebes hears this and thinks, great, Macedon's free trial is over, and revolts. Alexander's response was to force march his entire army hundreds of miles south in about 2 weeks, a pace that had absolutely no business being possible for an ancient army, and show up outside Thebes looking extremely alive and extremely unamused. He crushed the revolt hard, leveled most of the city, and made an example out of it, sending a very clear message to the rest of Greece. The boy king rumor mill needs to shut up immediately. Message received. Greece fell in line, and Alexander turned his attention east. With Greece handled, Alexander set his sights on the biggest empire on the planet, Persia. On paper, this is a terrible idea. The Persian Empire had more money, more land, and more manpower than Macedon could dream of. This is the ancient equivalent of challenging a heavyweight champ to a fight because you had a good breakfast. Alexander crossed into Persian territory with about 40,000 troops and somehow never lost a major battle for the rest of his life. At the Battle of Issus, he personally led a cavalry charge straight at the Persian center, getting close enough to King Darius III that Darius decided the smart move was to flee the battlefield in his own chariot. Which, fair. At Gaugamela, facing a Persian force that almost certainly outnumbered him significantly, Alexander pulled off a tactical gamble that split the enemy line wide open. By nightfall, the Persian Empire had taken a hit it was never really going to recover from. He was 26 years old. At 26, Alexander had already dismantled a 200-year-old empire. So, if you've been feeling behind lately, this has probably not helped. From there, he just kept going. Egypt, where the famously mysterious Oracle of Siwa reportedly told him he was the son of a god, which is a hell of a thing to hear on vacation. Then Babylon, then the Persian capital of Persepolis, then further east than any Greek army had ever gone, modern-day Afghanistan, Pakistan, and finally India. By the time Alexander's army reached the Hyphasis River in India, his men had been marching, fighting, and dying for over 8 years, thousands of miles from anything resembling home. They'd survived deserts, mountain ranges, monsoons, and enemies half of them couldn't have found on a map before this whole thing started. And here, for the first time in his life, Alexander ran into an opponent he genuinely could not beat. His own exhausted, done with his army, which simply refused to take one more step east. Sources say Alexander shut himself in his tent for 3 days, apparently waiting for his men to come to their senses. They did not come to their senses. Or, depending on your perspective, they already had. The guy who had never lost a battle had just lost an argument with his own soldiers. Alexander never made it home. He died in Babylon in 323 BC at 32 years old, and historians still argue about why. Disease, complications from old battle wounds, and because ancient history always needs a good conspiracy theory, possibly poison. He built an empire stretching from Greece to the edge of India in about a decade, and he never lost a major battle doing it. And because he died without a clear heir, his generals immediately started fighting over the leftovers, kicking off decades of wars over who got to keep the empire. Turns out, even a BAMF this legendary couldn't conquer mortality, or apparently make a succession plan. Alexander the Great didn't just make history, he ran out of it to make. Never defeated in a major battle, an empire on 3 continents, dead before his 33rd birthday. That's a BAMF. Subscribe for more historical BAMFs, new legends every episode.